3 a.m. Phoenix, Arizona. Jessica Morrison's phone explodes with calls. International number. Bali police. She answers, her hand already shaking. "We found your mother." Relief floods through her for exactly 2 seconds. "You need to come identify the body." Body. The word shatters everything. 72 hours later, Jessica stands in a Bali evidence room staring at a turquoise ring in a plastic bag, caked in mud. Her mother's ring. The officer's voice is flat, clinical. Remains found in a jungle ravine, headless, hands removed to delay identification. Jessica's knees buckle. Her mother came here for love, flew 8,000 miles to meet a man she'd talked to for 18 months, a man who remembered everything, who made her feel seen, a man who never existed. Linda Holloway landed in paradise on September 17th, 2023. 3 days later, she was dead. This is how loneliness becomes a weapon.
Welcome to True Crime Story Files. Real people, real crimes, real consequences, because every story matters. Subscribe now, turn on the bell, and step inside the world where truth meets tragedy.
Linda Holloway was 57 years old when her marriage ended in the spring of 2021. 28 years reduced to a stack of papers signed in silence at a lawyer's office downtown. No shouting, no drama, just two people who had run out of things to say to each other. She kept the house, a modest 2-bedroom in a quiet Phoenix neighborhood where the air conditioner rattled and the front yard needed work she kept meaning to get to. Most nights, she sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold, scrolling through her phone, wondering if this was all there was left. On the shelf above the sink sat a watercolor kit her daughter bought her 3 Christmases ago, still in its plastic wrap. The cellophane hadn't even been torn. Linda told herself she'd open it when she had time, when things settled down, when she felt less foolish about the idea of a middle-aged woman playing with paints like a child. Creativity felt like something other people were allowed to have, not her. She apologized constantly for taking up space in the grocery line, for asking the pharmacy tech to repeat himself, for texting her daughters when she knew they were busy. She had spent so many years making herself smaller, quieter, less of a burden, that she wasn't sure how to be anything else. Her greatest fear wasn't being alone, it was being forgotten. The woman whose kids called out of obligation twice a month, whose name came up at holidays, but never in between. She believed deep down in a place she never said out loud, that she hadn't been enough. Not as a wife, not as a mother, not as a woman. And that shame sat with her every single day. Her oldest daughter, Jessica, was 32 and drowning. 2 kids under 7, a full-time job in medical billing, a husband who traveled for work more than he was home. She moved through her days like she was checking boxes on a list that never ended. Breakfast, daycare drop-off, emails, meetings, pickup, dinner, baths, bedtime, repeat. Jessica loved her mother. She did. But she also screened her calls more often than she wanted to admit. Linda's name would light up her phone while she was buckling car seats or answering a work email, and Jessica would think, "I'll call her back later." Then later became tomorrow. Then tomorrow became next week. In the top drawer of her dresser, buried under old receipts and a tangle of charging cables, was a birthday card she'd started writing to her mom 6 months ago. The ink had barely dried on the first 2 lines before she got distracted and never picked it up again. It was still there, unfinished, unsent. Jessica's flaw was control. She micromanaged everything and everyone around her because the alternative felt like chaos. But control was also a kind of cage. It made her rigid, impatient, quick to snap when things didn't go according to plan. And her biggest fear? Losing her mother the way she lost her father. Suddenly, without warning, without the chance to say the things that mattered. Emma Holloway was 28, ambitious, and lived 2 states away in Denver. She worked long hours at a tech startup, traveled for conferences, posted carefully curated photos of her life that made it look fuller than it felt. She loved her family, but she also loved her freedom. The idea of being the one who had to drop everything, move back home, become the caretaker, it terrified her. Emma avoided discomfort the way some people avoid traffic. If a conversation got too heavy, she'd crack a joke or change the subject. If her mother's voice sounded too lonely on the phone, Emma would suddenly remember a meeting she was late for. The last real conversation they'd had was in early August. Linda called to ask how work was going, and Emma had been distracted, half listening, answering in short sentences while scrolling through emails. When her mom started to say something about feeling lonely, Emma cut her off. "Mom, I really have to go. I'll call you this weekend, okay?" She didn't call that weekend. Months later, there was still a voicemail saved in her phone. One her mother left on a random Tuesday afternoon, probably just calling to chat. Emma had never pressed play. She told herself she'd listen to it when she had time, when she wasn't so busy, when it felt less like one more thing she had to do. Her secret shame was this. She was afraid that loving her mother fully meant losing herself completely. 3 women, 3 lives moving in separate directions, all of them carrying guilt they didn't know how to name, and all of them believing the same quiet lie, that there would be more time, more phone calls, more visits, more chances to say the things they were too tired or too distracted or too afraid to say right now. They all thought they had more time. That's the cruelest lie grief tells us, that we can always call tomorrow. Linda downloaded the dating app on a Thursday night in late May of 2023. She'd been staring at the icon on her phone for 2 weeks before she finally opened it. The whole thing felt embarrassing. 59 years old, swiping through photos of men who looked like they'd given up or were lying about their age. She almost deleted it 3 times. But loneliness is a specific kind of ache. It doesn't announce itself. It just sits with you at the kitchen table, follows you to bed, makes you wonder if anyone would even notice if you stopped trying. So she kept scrolling. Most of the messages were generic, copy-paste compliments. "Hey, beautiful," from men whose profiles had one blurry photo and no bio. She ignored most of them. Then, on June 2nd, at 11:34 at night, a new match appeared. David, 62. Hospitality consultant, currently in Asia. His profile photo showed a man with graying hair, kind eyes, standing in front of what looked like a resort lobby. Professional, but approachable. The kind of face that didn't set off alarm bells. His first message was simple. "Your smile looks like it has stories behind it. I'd love to hear one, if you'd like to share." Linda read it twice. No generic pickup line. No immediate push for her phone number. Just curiosity. Like he actually wanted to know her. She replied the next morning. They talked for weeks. Small things at first. The kind of conversations that felt safe. He asked about her day. She told him about the neighbor's dog that kept digging up her garden. He shared a story about a hotel guest in Bali who tried to pay for a room with a bag of mangoes. It felt easy. Light. Like talking to an old friend. Then one night in late June, Linda opened up about something she hadn't planned to share. She told him about the watercolor kit on her shelf, how she'd wanted to paint when she was younger, but her ex-husband had shut it down. "You're not an artist, Lynn. Be serious." She typed it out quickly. almost embarrassed to admit how much those words had stayed with her. David's response came a few minutes later. "That's heartbreaking. Creativity isn't frivolous. It's how we stay alive inside." She stared at the screen. Nobody had ever said anything like that to her before. 3 weeks passed. They talked about everything. The weather, what they were watching on Netflix, random memories from childhood. Nothing too deep, nothing too heavy. Then, on July 18th, he sent a message that made her stop cold. "Did you ever buy those watercolors? The ones your ex said were a waste of money?" Linda looked at the date of the message. It had been 3 weeks since she mentioned it. 3 weeks of random conversations about a dozen other things. And he remembered. Not just that she liked art, but the exact detail. The exact hurt. She didn't know what to say, so she just typed, "Not yet. Maybe someday." His reply came quickly. "I hope you do. I think you'd be wonderful at it." Something shifted in her chest, a feeling she hadn't felt in years, the sensation of being seen. By early August, they were talking every day. He started sending voice notes, short ones, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. His voice was warm, calm, with a British accent that made everything he said sound thoughtful. "You sound tired today. Remember, you're allowed to rest, Linda. You don't have to do everything for everyone all the time." She'd play them back twice, sometimes 3 times, just to hear someone say her name like it mattered. They tried video calls, but the connection was always terrible. He apologized constantly, said the internet at the resort was unreliable. His camera would freeze. The angle was always slightly off, never showing his full face. The screen would glitch and pixelate just as he leaned forward. Linda didn't mind. She told herself it was enough just to hear his voice. But there was something she started noticing. The calls always dropped at the same time, 10:47 at night, Phoenix time. At first, she thought it was coincidence, bad Wi-Fi, time zone confusion, but it kept happening, night after night. 10:47, the screen would freeze, the call would end. On August 24th, she decided to test it. They were mid-conversation, talking about nothing important, when she glanced at the clock. 10:46. She smiled into the camera. "Watch, you're going to vanish at 10:47 again." He laughed, said something about how unpredictable the connection was. 10:47. The screen glitched, froze. The call dropped. Linda sat there in the silence of her living room, staring at the black screen. Later that night, she pulled out the small journal she kept by her bed, the one she used to write down grocery lists and doctor's appointments. She flipped to a blank page and wrote, 10:47 again, stop overthinking, just be happy. She underlined the last part twice. Late that night, after she couldn't sleep, she opened her laptop and typed into Google, "video call drops same time every night." The top results talked about time zone conversions, scheduled network maintenance, VPN disconnects. Nothing felt quite right. She closed the laptop and told herself she was being paranoid, because she wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that someone out there had chosen her, remembered her, cared enough to ask about the things that hurt. She saw the pattern. She just didn't trust herself enough to believe it. Jessica showed up on a Saturday morning in early August with a bag of groceries and her younger daughter in tow. Linda wasn't expecting her. She'd been sitting at the kitchen table with her phone face up, mid-conversation with David, when she heard the knock at the door. She flipped the phone over so fast it almost slid off the table. Jessica let herself in with her key, balancing a toddler on one hip and a canvas bag in the other hand. "Hey, Mom, thought I'd bring you some stuff from Costco. You said you were running low on coffee." Linda stood too quickly, smoothing down her shirt like she'd been caught doing something wrong. "Oh, that's so sweet. You didn't have to do that." They unpacked the groceries together. Small talk about the kids, about Jessica's husband being out of town again, about the air conditioner that was making that rattling noise. Normal things. Safe things. Then Linda's phone buzzed on the table. Once, twice, 3 times in a row. Linda reached for it immediately, glanced at the screen, and silenced it, without opening the message. Jessica paused, a box of crackers still in her hand. "Who's that?" Linda's response came out too fast, too casual. "Just spam you know how it is." She tucked the phone into her pocket and changed the subject before Jessica could ask again. But Jessica noticed, the way her mother's shoulders tensed, the way her voice got just a little too bright, the way she kept her hand near her pocket for the rest of the visit, like she was afraid the phone might give her away. It wasn't spam. 3 weeks later, in the last week of August, a package arrived. Linda brought it inside with the kind of excitement Jessica hadn't seen from her in months. She tore open the plain brown wrapping to reveal a silk scarf, deep blue with delicate gold embroidery along the edges. Expensive looking. Beautiful. Jessica was there again, this time helping her mom organize the hall closet. Emma had video called in from Denver, her face small on Linda's phone screen, propped against a stack of books. Linda held up the scarf, letting the fabric catch the afternoon light. "Look at this. Isn't it beautiful?" Jessica glanced over. "Where'd that come from?" Linda's smile didn't waver. "It's from David, from Bali." The name landed in the room like something heavy. Jessica stopped folding towels. "David?" Emma's voice came through the phone speaker, cautious. "Mom, where's the tracking info? What's the return address?" Linda's face shifted, defensive, guarded. "There isn't one. He had it sent through a local shop. Why does that matter?" Emma didn't back down. "Because we don't even know who this guy is." Linda folded the scarf carefully, her hands moving with more precision than necessary. "Do I need your permission to get a gift? I'm 59. I think I can handle a scarf." Jessica opened her mouth to respond, but Linda was already walking toward her bedroom, the scarf draped over her arm. The conversation ended there, but the worry didn't. By the first week of September, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She stopped by again, this time with the excuse of helping her mom sort through online banking statements. Linda had mentioned having trouble with autopay settings, and Jessica offered to walk her through it. They sat side by side at the kitchen table on a Tuesday afternoon, Linda's laptop open between them. Jessica pulled up the bank account, scanning through recent transactions, groceries, utilities, a charge from the pharmacy. Then something else. An inquiry. International wire transfer, marked as pending review. The amount was small. $50. But the destination was listed as Indonesia. Jessica's stomach dropped. "Mom, what's this?" Linda leaned in, squinting at the screen. "Oh, that. David needed help with something. It's just a small thing." Jessica's voice came out sharper than she intended. "You sent money to someone in Indonesia?" Linda pulled back, her expression hardening. "It was a test transaction. The bank required it before approving a larger transfer. He's waiting on payment from a client and needed a little help to cover his hotel bill." Jessica stared at her. "How much is the larger transfer?" Linda closed the laptop. "That's my business." Jessica's hands were shaking. The number swam in front of her eyes. She stood up too fast, knocking over her coffee mug. It shattered on the floor, brown liquid spreading across the tile in a dark stain. She didn't move to clean it up. She just stood there, staring at it, thinking, "This is real. This isn't paranoia. This is real." Later that night, Jessica couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the conversation in her head. The defensiveness, the evasiveness, the way her mother wouldn't make eye contact when she talked about David. At 11:43, she texted Emma, "We need to talk. About Mom." Emma called her back immediately. They decided Jessica would go over the next evening, unannounced. Jessica arrived just after 8 the following night. The lights were on in the living room. She let herself in quietly and found her mother at the dining table, laptop open, headphones in. Linda didn't hear her come in. Jessica stood in the doorway and watched. On the screen, a flight booking website. The search bar read, "Flights to Denpasar, Bali. Departure date, September 14th, 2023. Less than 2 weeks away." Jessica's voice cut through the silence. "Mom!" Linda spun around, yanking out her headphones. Guilt flashed across her face before she could hide it. Jessica walked closer, her arms crossed. "How long have you been talking to this man?" Linda closed the laptop slowly. "A while." Jessica's voice was shaking now, not from anger, from fear. "How long is a while?" "A few months." "And you're planning to fly to Indonesia to meet him?" Linda stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "You don't get to be upset now. You've barely called in months. You silence me. Forget to text back. But now you care? Now you want an opinion about my life?" Jessica felt the words hit like a slap, because they were true, all of it. "Mom, this isn't about us. This is about you sending money to someone you've never met and planning a trip halfway around the world. I'm going." Linda's voice was quiet but firm. "I already started the loan paperwork. I'm leaving in 2 weeks, and I'm not asking for your permission." The room went silent. Jessica's mind raced. Loan paperwork, money already sent, flights already searched. Emma's voice came through the phone, small and desperate. "Mom, please, just wait. Let us verify." "I don't need verification." By the time they realized this wasn't just a phase, Linda had already made up her mind. And nothing they said was going to change it. On September 14th, 2023, at 9:10 in the evening Phoenix time, Linda Holloway walked through Sky Harbor International Airport with a carry-on bag and a suitcase. She wore comfortable clothes for the long flight. Jeans, a soft sweater, the turquoise ring on her left hand that she never took off. Jessica had tried one last time to talk her out of it. Emma had sent a dozen texts begging her to reconsider. But Linda's mind was made up. She was tired of being afraid, tired of apologizing, tired of living a life where nothing ever felt like hers. Her flight to Los Angeles departed on time. The next night, September 15th at 11:30 Los Angeles time, Linda sat at her gate in LAX, waiting to board the long haul to Singapore. The airport was buzzing with travelers, announcements echoing overhead, the smell of coffee and fast food mixing in the recycled air. She pulled out her phone and opened the family group chat. Jessica and Emma hadn't responded to her last few messages, but she typed one anyway. "Boarding in 20 minutes. LAX Singapore, Bali. Next time you see me, I'll be in paradise. Love you both." She added a smiley face, a plane emoji, and hit send. Jessica saw the message while putting her kids to bed. She stared at it for a long time, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Emma read it on her lunch break in Denver. She felt a knot form in her stomach, but told herself everything would be fine. Her mom was an adult. People met online all the time. It would be fine. Neither of them replied. After 2 flights and nearly 30 hours of travel, Linda's plane touched down at Ngurah Rai International Airport in Bali on September 17th at 2:10 in the afternoon local time. The heat hit her the moment she stepped outside. Thick, humid air that clung to her skin. Palm trees swaying in the breeze of Mason. The sound of motorbikes and car horns blending into a constant hum. She stood in the baggage claim area for what felt like forever, watching suitcases circle the conveyor belt. When hers finally appeared, she grabbed it and wheeled it toward the exit. She pulled out her phone and sent a text to the family group chat. Just landed. Bag took forever. David's sending a driver. I'll text once I get to the hotel. She added a heart emoji and put her phone back in her purse. Outside the airport, she scanned the crowd of drivers holding signs. None of them had her name. She waited. 20 minutes passed. Then a man approached her. Mid-30s, wearing a polo shirt and sunglasses. He said her name before she could ask. Linda, I'm here for David. He sent me to pick you up. She smiled, relieved. Oh, thank you. I was starting to worry. He took her suitcase and led her to a white van parked along the curb. The side door slid open. Another man sat in the back seat. He nodded at her, but didn't say anything. Linda climbed in. At 5:42 that evening, Linda sat on the edge of a bed in a room that didn't match the photos David had sent. The walls were stained, water damage in the corner. The air conditioner rattled loudly but barely cooled the air. The view from the window showed a parking lot, not the rice terraces he'd described. But she told herself it was fine. Maybe the main villa was somewhere else. Maybe this was temporary. Her phone was in her hand. She typed quickly. At the hotel now. Wi-Fi is patchy. Quick shower, then dinner. We'll video call tomorrow. Love you so much. Stop worrying. She added a kissy face emoji, even though her hands were shaking slightly. Then she set her phone on the nightstand and went to the bathroom, leaving it behind. She didn't know it would be the last message she'd ever send. The next day, September 18th, no calls came, no texts, no video call like Linda promised. Jessica checked her phone constantly, sent a message in the morning. Hey Mom, how's Bali? Call when you can. The message showed 2 blue check marks. Delivered, but not read. By the afternoon, she tried calling. It rang twice and went to voicemail. Emma tried too. Same thing. They told themselves not to panic. She was probably busy, exploring, spending time with David. The Wi-Fi was bad. She'd call when she could. But the read receipts never changed. Linda's online status on WhatsApp never updated. Her phone had stopped moving. By September 19th at 8 in the morning Phoenix time, Jessica had made 17 calls to her mother. Each one went to voicemail. She sat on the edge of her bed and called the hotel. She'd found the name in her mother's email confirmation, a small resort in Ubud. The front desk clerk spoke broken English, but Jessica understood enough. Yes, Mrs. Holloway. She checked out yesterday. Jessica's heart dropped. Checked out? Where did she go? She left with 2 men, local men. They seemed like friends. She had her bag with her. Jessica's voice cracked. Did she say where she was going? No, ma'am. I'm sorry. That same morning, Jessica called the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta. The woman on the other end was patient but firm. They needed details. Full name, passport number, last known location, itinerary. Jessica gave them everything she had. Later that afternoon, she filed a missing person report with the Phoenix Police Department. She sent them screenshots of the last messages, the flight details, the hotel confirmation, everything. Emma flew home that night. The 2 of them sat in Linda's living room, staring at their phones, waiting for a call that never came. From the moment her phone stopped moving, they could draw the line straight from hope to horror. On September 20th, Jessica and Emma sat at their mother's dining table, surrounded by papers they had no right to be looking at. Bank statements, email printouts, documents they'd accessed using the password Linda kept written on a sticky note inside her desk drawer. The embassy needed details, financial records, anything that could help them understand where Linda had gone and who she'd gone with. So the daughters did what they had to do. Then, on January 18th, 2024, two local hikers were trekking through a remote area near a ravine outside Tabanan, about an hour northwest of Denpasar. Wayan and Ketut were brothers. They hiked this route every Sunday morning, the same trail they'd walked with their father before he died. They knew every rock, every route, every bend in the path, which is why they knew the smell didn't belong. The terrain was rough, dense jungle, steep drops, not a place tourists went, not a place most people went at all. They smelled it before they saw anything. Something wrong. Something that didn't belong in the air. Wayan pulled out his phone and called the police. The next morning, January 19th at 7:42 Phoenix time, Jessica was making breakfast when her phone rang. Unknown number. International code. Her stomach dropped before she even answered. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was calm, professional, heavily accented. "Ms. Holloway, this is Officer Wayan Sutrisna with the Bali Police Department. We need you and your sister to come back to Bali as soon as possible." Jessica's hand tightened around the phone. "Why? Did you find her?" There was a pause. Too long. "We found remains. We need you to come." Jessica's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the kitchen floor, the phone still pressed to her ear. "Remains?" "Yes. We believe they may belong to your mother, but we need confirmation." The officer gave her the details. Where to go. Who to contact when they arrived. Jessica wrote none of it down. She just nodded, even though he couldn't see her. Emma booked the flights that afternoon. The drive to the site took nearly 2 hours on January 21st. The police officer who picked them up from their hotel didn't say much, just offered bottled water and apologized for the rough road ahead. When they arrived, Jessica and Emma climbed out of the car into air that felt heavier than it should. The jungle pressed in on all sides, thick green canopy overhead, the buzz of insects constant and loud. In the distance, the faint hum of traffic on a main road. But here, it felt like the world had been swallowed whole. Yellow police tape stretched between trees. Blue tarps covered sections of the ground. Officers moved carefully, stepping over roots and rocks, speaking to each other in low voices. A forensic technician knelt near the edge of a shallow ravine, his gloved hands moving slowly, deliberately. The smell hit them as they got closer. Rot. Damp earth. Something metallic underneath it all. Emma covered her nose and mouth with her hand. Jessica just stood there, frozen. An officer approached them, the same one who had called. Officer Sutrisna. He spoke quietly, gesturing toward the ravine but not forcing them to look. The remains were found 3 days ago. Advanced decomposition. We believe they have been here for 3 to 4 months, based on the condition and the environment. Jessica's voice came out barely above a whisper. "How do you know it's her?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he nodded to the forensic technician, who stood and walked over carefully. In his gloved hand, held with tweezers, was a clear evidence bag. Inside was a turquoise ring caked in red mud. The stone had lost its polish, but the silver band caught the filtered jungle light. The engraving on the inside, "Love finds you," was barely legible, filled with dirt. Jessica's entire body went cold. The technician held it closer so she could see. Jessica had been with her mother the day she bought that ring, a little antique shop in Scottsdale. Linda had seen it in the case and smiled. said it felt like a sign, like a promise that things would get better. She never took it off. Jessica's vision tunneled. The jungle sounds faded. The buzz of insects, the rustle of leaves, the distant crackle of police radios. The voices around her became muffled, distant. Her knees buckled. Emma caught her, but Emma was shaking too. They held each other up because neither of them could stand on their own. Officer Satrizna's voice came back into focus, gentle but factual. The body was found in advanced decomposition. The head and hands were removed, intentionally. This was done to delay identification. Emma's voice broke. Oh my God. We also recovered fragments of clothing, a blue shirt, jeans. They match the description of what your mother was wearing when she left the hotel. Jessica couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She could only stare at the ring in the evidence bag, that small piece of her mother's life, now reduced to proof of her death. The officer continued, his tone careful. The location and the condition suggest the body was placed here shortly after she disappeared, likely within 48 hours. We are treating this as a homicide. Homicide. The word landed like a weight Jessica couldn't lift. Emma sank to the ground, her hands over her face. Her body shook with sobs that came from somewhere deep, somewhere she didn't know existed. Jessica stood there, staring at the blue tarps, the yellow tape, the officers moving carefully through the jungle. Somewhere under all of that was her mother. Or what was left of her. The forensic technician stepped away to give them space. The jungle sounds filled the silence. Insects buzzing, leaves rustling in the hot breeze, distant traffic, life continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Grief isn't a scream. Sometimes it's just silence, with your heart beating too loud in your ears and your lungs, forgetting how to pull in air. The break in the case didn't come from the jungle or the crime scene. It came from a fraud analyst sitting in a temperature-controlled office in Phoenix, Arizona, staring at a computer screen on January 22nd. The analyst flagged Linda Holloway's account and picked up the phone. As she dialed her supervisor's extension, she thought about the woman whose name was on the account. Linda Holloway. Reported missing 4 months ago. The analyst had flagged hundreds of accounts in her career, but this one felt different. This one felt like a body waiting to be found. Linda's bank account had been flagged. Unusual activity. Withdrawals. Multiple transactions at ATMs across Bali over a 2-week period in late September and early October. Small amounts. $200 here, $300 there. Just under the threshold that would trigger an automatic freeze. But the analyst noticed something. The withdrawals were happening days after Linda had been reported missing. And they were all happening in Indonesia. The bank contacted the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta. The embassy contacted the Indonesian police. And within hours, Jessica and Emma were sitting in a conference room at Bali Police Headquarters on January 23rd, watching grainy ATM footage on a laptop screen. The first clip was dated September 19th, 2 days after Linda disappeared. The timestamp read 11:47 at night. The camera angle was high, looking down at the ATM from above. A man approached on a scooter. He wore a black helmet with a full visor that covered his entire face, a green jacket, jeans, gloves. He inserted a card, entered a PIN, withdrew cash, then drove away. The officer sitting across from them, Detective Agung Prasetyo, clicked to the next video. Same man, same helmet, same green jacket, same scooter, different ATM, different part of the city, same routine. Another click, another ATM, same man. Jessica's hands were clenched so tight her nails dug into her palms. That's her card. That's him. That's one of them. Detective Prasetyo nodded. We believe so. We've identified 8 separate withdrawals across 5 different apes in Denpasar and Ubud, all within a 10-day window. Total amount withdrawn, approximately $4,300. Emma's voice was shaking. He knew her PIN. The detective's expression didn't change. Yes, which suggests she gave it to him, or he observed her using it, or it was obtained through coercion. Jessica felt sick. She thought about her mother. Alone, scared, maybe forced to hand over her card, her PIN, everything. The digital trail went deeper. The cybercrime unit had been working quietly in the background for weeks, tracing the WhatsApp number Linda had been communicating with. The one registered to David. Detective Prasetyo pulled up a map on his screen. Red dots marked locations where the device had logged into Wi-Fi networks or connected to cell towers. This number was active for 4 months leading up to your mother's disappearance. Most of the activity was concentrated here. He zoomed in on a neighborhood in Denpasar, a cluster of red dots centered around a single address. A rental house, small, 3 men living there. We've been surveilling the location for the past week. Jessica leaned forward. Have you arrested them? Not yet. We're waiting for the right moment. We need enough evidence to ensure charges stick. But we're close. He clicked to another screen, a marketplace app. The same device that had been used for the WhatsApp account had also logged into a local buy and sell platform. The profile had listed items for sale: phones, laptops, electronics. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. They were selling her stuff. The detective didn't confirm or deny. He just moved to the next slide. What came next changed everything. A tech specialist entered the room. Young, maybe late 20s. He carried a tablet and set it on the table in front of Jessica and Emma. We recovered files from devices seized during a preliminary search of the residence. Among them were audio and video recordings. Some were practice runs. Some were actual calls. He tapped the screen. A video file opened. Blurry, low resolution. The kind of quality you'd expect from a bad internet connection. On the screen was Linda, sitting in what looked like her living room back in Phoenix, smiling, talking to someone off camera, and then a voice. Warm, British, gentle. You look lovely today, Linda. I can't wait to finally meet you in person. Jessica's breath caught. That was him. That was David. The tech specialist tapped another button. The video froze. He adjusted something on the tablet and then played the audio again. But this time, something was different. The warm British voice started to distort. It wavered. Then it separated, like peeling back a layer, like pulling tape off a surface and hearing the rip. What emerged underneath was completely different. Flat, monotone, a local accent, Indonesian-inflected English, the voice of a man who had never been to Britain in his life. The tech specialist looked up. It's a voice modulation app, real-time voice-changing software. You can download it for free. Very cheap. Very easy to use. He ran it through his phone during the calls. Your mother never heard his real voice. Jessica stared at the screen, the frozen image of her mother smiling at someone who didn't exist. Emma's voice cracked. She never even heard him. Not once. The specialist nodded. Correct. Everything she heard was digitally altered. The accent, the tone, the warmth, none of it was real. Jessica felt something break inside her. She thought about all the voice notes her mother had saved, the ones she'd probably played over and over when she felt lonely, the calls she'd told her daughters about with such excitement. None of it was real. Linda had given this person everything: her heart, her money, her trust, her life. And he had never given her anything that was actually his, not even his voice. The raid happened before dawn on January 29th to 4:30 in the morning. 20 officers, 2 armed tactical units. They surrounded a small rental house on a narrow street in a quiet residential neighborhood in Denpasar, the kind of place where neighbors minded their own business and didn't ask questions. At exactly 4:30, they breached the door. Inside, 3 men were asleep, 1 on a couch, 2 in back bedrooms. They were pulled from their beds, cuffed, and sat on the floor while officers swept the house. What they found confirmed everything. More than 20 phones, different models, different carriers, all lined up on a table like inventory. Boxes of SIM cards, prepaid, untraceable. Laptops open to chat windows with usernames in English. Messages to women in the US, Australia, the UK. Conversations in different stages. Some just starting. Some weeks deep. Some asking for money. And in a drawer in the kitchen, underneath a stack of takeout menus, they found Linda Holloway's passport and her bank card. Jessica and Emma weren't allowed inside during the raid, but they were brought to the police station 2 hours later to observe the interrogations through a one-way window. The 3 men sat in separate rooms, each one handcuffed to a metal table, each one with a different reaction to being caught. Suspect 1, the operator, mid-30s, clean-shaven, wearing a faded t-shirt and basketball shorts. He sat with his arms crossed, leaning back in his chair like this was an inconvenience, not a reckoning. Detective Prasetyo sat across from him, files spread on the table, photos of Linda, bank statements, screenshots of messages. The man barely looked at them. You were managing the online communications, the profiles, the conversations. The man shrugged. I was doing a job. You were scamming women, lying to them, taking their money. He tilted his head, almost amused. This is just business. They send money because they want to. Nobody forced them to fall in love. Jessica's hands curled into fists on the other side of the glass. Emma stood beside her, trembling. The detective leaned forward. Linda Holloway is dead. Her body was found in a ravine. You were part of that. The man's expression didn't change. I never touched her. I ran the chats. That's all. You lured her here. You set up the meeting. You coordinated the pickup. He shrugged again. I did my part. What happened after wasn't my problem. Jessica wanted to scream. She wanted to break through the glass and make him look at her mother's photo. Make him see her as a person, not a transaction. But he didn't see her that way. He never had. Suspect 2, the muscle, early 20s. Thin. Jittery. His leg bounced constantly under the table. His eyes darted around the room like he was looking for a way out. He broke within 30 minutes. The detective didn't even have to push hard. He just laid out the evidence, the ATM footage, the phone records, the timeline. We know you were there. We have you on camera at the ATM. We have your prints on the van. Tell us what happened. The young man's voice cracked. We were just supposed to scare her. That's what we were told. Pick her up from the hotel. Take her somewhere quiet. Make her think she was in danger so she'd send more money. That's it. That was the plan. But that's not what happened. He shook his head, tears starting to form. She started screaming. She figured it out. She said she was going to call the police. She tried to grab her phone, and it went bad. Who hit her first? He hesitated. His leg shook harder. I swear I didn't. I swear. I just held her arms. I was told to hold her. But then it got out of control. Who killed her? His voice dropped to a whisper. All of us. We panicked. We didn't know what to do. So we We got rid of the body. Emma turned away from the glass, her hand over her mouth. Jessica stayed frozen, staring at the young man who couldn't even own what he'd done, who kept saying "we" like it diluted the responsibility. Suspect 3, the ghost, late 40s, graying hair, calm, unnervingly calm. He sat with his hands folded on the table, staring straight ahead. He didn't speak, not once. His lawyer, a middle-aged man in a wrinkled suit, did all the talking. My client has no comment at this time. Detective Persetio laid out the evidence methodically: financial records, communication logs, witness statements. Your client coordinated the logistics. He arranged the pickups. He managed the payouts. He knew exactly what was happening. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. My client denies any involvement in the death of Ms. Holloway. He was the local coordinator. He's been running this operation for years. We have records linking him to at least 4 other women who were scammed, 2 of whom also went missing. The man at the table didn't flinch, didn't blink. But when Detective Persetio laid down the photo of Linda's turquoise ring, the man's left eye twitched. Just once, a barely perceptible flutter. Then his face went blank again. He just stared at the wall, like none of this had anything to do with him. Jessica felt a chill run down her spine. This man wasn't nervous. He wasn't defensive. He was empty. Like he'd done this so many times, it didn't even register anymore. Later, Detective Persetio explained the full scope to Jessica and Emma in a private office. These 3 men were directly involved in your mother's abduction, robbery, and death. They will be charged accordingly. Emma's voice was hoarse. What about David, the one who actually talked to her? The detective's expression tightened. We've traced the original operator of the David persona to the Philippines. A red notice has been issued through Interpol, but he is not yet in custody. He may have already moved to another country. These cases are difficult. These networks operate across borders. Jessica felt the weight of it settle over her. So, he might never be caught. The detective didn't lie to her. We are doing everything we can, but I cannot promise you he will be. Jessica and Emma sat in silence after the detective left. They'd seen the men, heard their words, watched them justify, deflect, and deny. Emma finally spoke. They didn't even see her as a person. Jessica shook her head. No, they didn't. They weren't masterminds. They were middlemen in a marketplace where love was just a product, and women like Linda were inventory. The courtroom was unbearably hot in June of 2024. No air conditioning, just ceiling fans rotating slowly overhead. Every seat was filled. Journalists, embassy staff, family members of other victims hoping for justice of their own. Jessica and Emma sat in the front row, separated from the defendants by a low wooden barrier. The trial had lasted 3 weeks. Testimonies, forensic reports, digital evidence, ATM footage, chat logs, the turquoise ring in its evidence bag, displayed for the court to see. Now, the 3 men sat at separate tables, waiting for the judge to speak. Before sentencing, the court allowed victim impact statements. Jessica stood at the podium, a single sheet of paper trembling in her hands. My mother's last text to me said, "Love you. Video call tomorrow." I didn't answer. I was putting my kids to bed. I thought I had more time. Her voice cracked. She looked directly at the 3 men. I thought I had more time to tell her I loved her, to apologize for the calls I didn't return. I thought I had more time. She folded the paper and sat down. The room was silent except for the whir of ceiling fans. Emma stood next, but before she could speak, the prosecutor requested permission to read from Linda's journal. An entry dated August 10th, 2023. Emma called today. She sounded tired. I kept it short. I don't want to be a burden. Emma's face crumpled. She was never a burden. That was all she could say before her knees gave out. Jessica caught her, pulled her into a chair. Emma sobbed, deep, wrenching sounds that filled the courtroom. The judge waited. Let the moment breathe. The sentencing took less than 10 minutes. Suspect 2, 18 years, reduced for cooperation. Suspect 1, 22 years. The judge noted his complete lack of remorse. Suspect 3, 27 years. The longest sentence. The judge cited the scale of his operation and the deliberate mutilation of Linda's body. The judge paused, looking directly at the 3 men. You will serve your sentences in full. There will be no early release, and perhaps, in your years of confinement, you will learn what you failed to understand, that the woman you killed was not a transaction. She was someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone who deserved to be loved, not destroyed. The gavel came down. The scammers had taken her mother's money, her life, and her home. Loneliness doesn't make women weak. It makes them human. If someone you love is reaching out into the dark, don't let a stranger be the first one to reach back. Thank you for watching. If Linda's story made you stop and think, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. And if you know someone, a mother, a sister, a friend, who's been lonely, who's met someone online who seems too perfect, who's planning a trip to meet a stranger, share this video with them. Because sometimes danger doesn't look like danger. It comes wrapped in compliments and voice notes. It comes from someone who remembers your birthday and asks about your day. It comes from a voice that makes you feel seen for the first time in years. The scammers who killed Linda are in prison, but the man who pretended to love her is still out there, right now, messaging someone new. Check on the people you love. Call your mom. Text your sister. Ask how they're really doing. Because loneliness is louder than you think, and predators know exactly how to listen.